The first explosion arrived without sound. One moment, the ceremonial platform floated peacefully above the silver plains of Valor, its transparent floor reflecting 3 moons and the slow procession of diplomatic ships overhead. The next, a sphere of black light unfolded beside the Queen's throne and swallowed every frequency around it. Human medic Elias Venn felt the silence before he understood the danger. His breathing vanished from his own ears. The hum of the platform's gravity engines disappeared. Even the Queen's long ceremonial cloak froze in the air as if time itself had hesitated. Then the sphere collapsed and sound returned all at once. The blast threw Elias across the medical station. He struck a supply console hard enough to scatter sealed bandages, nanogel cartridges, and one extremely expensive diagnostic drone that immediately announced, in a cheerful voice, that it had suffered minor emotional distress. "Join the club," Elias groaned. Across the platform, royal guards formed a wall around Queen Seralyth. Their armor unfolded into sharp, luminous plates, projecting hexagonal shields toward the smoke. The Queen remained standing for 2 breaths. She looked almost human beneath the white gold crown, except for the elegant ears rising through her silver hair, long and narrow, their tips trembling with pain. Then her knees gave way. A second projectile struck the throne. This one screamed. Blue fire rolled across the platform as security drones launched from hidden compartments. The diplomats fled toward emergency lifts, colliding with servants, soldiers, and one ambassador who continued shouting about diplomatic immunity while lying beneath a banquet table. Elias pushed himself upright and looked toward the Queen. She had fallen beside the shattered throne, one hand pressed against her ribs. Dark blood spread between the plates of her royal armor. The liquid glimmered faintly, threaded with metallic particles designed to carry oxygen through her body. Around her, the armor's defensive field had awakened. It was beautiful. It was also killing everything nearby. Arcs of pale energy crawled over the floor. A guard rushed toward her and was thrown backward before his second step, smoke rising from his breastplate. Another tried to extend a medical probe. The probe melted. "Field intensity?" Elias shouted. A palace physician crouched behind a broken pillar, clutching a scanner with both hands. 900 teravolts at the surface. That sounds unhealthy. It is royal armor. That was not my question. The physician stared at him as though human stupidity had finally achieved physical form. "No one can approach her." Queen Seralyth shifted weakly. The movement caused the field to flare, burning a perfect circle into the transparent floor. Beneath it, the silver plains shimmered thousands of meters below. Elias grabbed his emergency pack. A commander seized his shoulder. "Human, stop. She is bleeding. The armor will destroy you. She is still bleeding. The royal physicians are calculating a solution." Elias glanced at the physicians. 3 were arguing over holographic models. Another appeared to be requesting permission from an ancestral database. "At this speed," Elias said, "they will discover a brilliant cure several minutes after she dies." The commander tightened his grip. "You do not understand the armor." "No. But I understand holes in people." The commander looked toward the Queen. Her breathing had become shallow. A shard of black crystal protruded beneath her lower breastplate, vibrating with foreign energy. The assassin's weapon had pierced both armor and flesh, then disrupted the suit's control network. Every defensive system was now reacting blindly. Elias pulled free and opened his pack. He selected a coil of grounding filament, 2 nanogel injectors, a portable field sensor, and a pair of insulated surgical gloves rated for reactor maintenance. The diagnostic drone hovered beside him, one wing bent. Probability of survival, 11%. Optimistic. Revision, 7%. Thank you. He stepped toward the field. The first wave struck him like invisible heat. His teeth vibrated. Symbols flickered across his visor as the sensor struggled to interpret the armor's pulse. It was not a continuous barrier. The energy rose and fell in intervals, each surge separated by less than half a second. A heartbeat. The armor was breathing with her. Elias waited, counting the flashes. 1, 2, move. He crossed the first meter. Gasps rose behind him. The next surge scorched the shoulder of his uniform. He smelled burned fabric and decided not to think about whether the smell included skin. 1, 2, move. The Queen opened her eyes. They were pale green, bright even through the pain. She watched him approach with an expression that was neither gratitude nor fear. It was disbelief. "Do not," she whispered. Elias knelt just beyond the strongest arc. "Your Majesty," he said, studying the crystal shard, "I have ignored better advice from people with less impressive crowns." A faint sound escaped her. It might have been a laugh. It might have been a warning. He waited for the next pulse, lunged forward, and placed both hands against her armor. The entire platform erupted in white light. The white light passed through Elias without burning him. For an instant he saw nothing except the outlines of his own bones glowing inside his hands. Then the field snapped inward and released him with a violent crack. He landed on one knee beside the Queen, both palms still pressed against her armor. The royal guards shouted behind him, but their voices sounded distant beneath the high ringing in his skull. His visor filled with warnings. Cardiac rhythm irregular. Neural interference detected. Medic advised to stop being an idiot. Elias blinked at the final message. The damaged diagnostic drone hovered near his shoulder, projecting the words directly into his display. "You added that one." "I considered it medically relevant," the drone replied. Queen Seralyth's armor trembled beneath his fingers. The surface was warm, almost alive, and fine golden lines moved through the metal like veins beneath skin. Elias had expected machinery. Instead, he felt rhythm, resistance, and something uncomfortably close to fear. The suit had bonded to her nervous system. Worse, it appeared to believe he was part of the attack. A narrow arc of energy snapped across his wrist. Pain shot to his elbow. "Field rising," someone shouted. "I noticed," Elias called back. He pulled the grounding filament from his pack and attached one end to the fractured edge of the throne. The other end he wrapped around his forearm, then clipped it to the Queen's breastplate. The filament glowed red immediately. The palace physician stared from behind the pillar. "That cable cannot contain royal discharge. It only needs to contain it briefly." "How briefly?" Elias looked at the cable as smoke began curling from it. "Very." He studied the armor's pulse again. The surges matched the Queen's heartbeat, but not perfectly. Each defensive wave arrived a fraction too late, like an echo trying to imitate the original. The black crystal lodged beneath her ribs was corrupting the timing. He leaned closer. "Your Majesty, can you hear me?" Her green eyes opened slowly. "Unfortunately." "That is encouraging. You are touching the armor. I am trying not to take it personally." Her gaze shifted toward his hands. Even weakened, there was something commanding in her expression, a lifetime of obedience expected and usually received. "It will kill you. Then I will complain afterward." A faint curve appeared at the corner of her mouth. Elias slid a field sensor toward the crystal shard. The device squealed and shut down. "Very professional," he muttered. The drone tilted sideways. "I am recording this procedure as experimental. Record it as inspired." "I have selected reckless." Another pulse struck. The grounding filament flashed, diverting part of the charge into the ruined throne. The metal frame exploded behind them, showering the floor with sparks. One of the guards ducked. "Was that expected?" "No," Elias said. The guard looked alarmed. "But it was useful." Elias reached beneath the edge of the armor. The plates tried to close around his fingers, sharp as mechanical jaws. He forced them apart with a surgical spreader while the Queen's breath caught in her throat. Beneath the armor, her skin was pale and smooth, marked only by luminous vessels branching along her side. Blood flowed around the black shard in slow, glistening drops. The wound was deep. He injected nanogel along the outer tissue. Silver particles spread through the blood, forming a temporary seal, but the crystal vibrated harder as they approached it. Symbols appeared across its surface, folding and unfolding in microscopic patterns. "This is not only a projectile," Elias said. The palace physician finally moved closer, remaining outside the field. "What is it?" "A command device. It is forcing the armor to defend the weapon." A stunned silence followed. The assassin had not merely tried to kill the queen. They had designed the armor to prevent anyone from saving her. Elias adjusted his grip around the shard. Queen Seralyth caught his wrist. Her fingers were surprisingly strong. "If you remove it," she whispered, "the armor may discharge everything at once. If I leave it, you bleed out. You speak very calmly about unpleasant choices." "I work in medicine." Her long ears lowered slightly, betraying pain her face refused to show. Elias looked into her eyes. "When I pull this free, hold your breath." "Why?" "I have no idea. Patients feel more involved when given instructions." This time she did laugh, though it ended in a sharp gasp. The field began to rise again. Elias counted the rhythm. 1. The armor brightened. 2. The filament melted. Move. He pulled the crystal free. Energy tore through the platform. Every lamp burst. The gravity floor flickered, dropping everyone several centimeters before stabilizing. Elias felt the charge race across his arms and into his chest, but instead of throwing him away, the armor tightened around his hands. For one terrifying second, it held him there. Then the golden lines beneath its surface changed direction. The defensive field folded around him, scanned him, and went still. Elias stared at the silent armor. The diagnostic drone circled his head. Probability of survival revised. To what? 100%. That is because I already survived. Yes, the drone said. My calculations are now extremely reliable. The silence that followed felt stranger than the explosions. Queen Seralyth's armor had ceased glowing, yet Elias kept his hands in place, afraid that any sudden movement might remind the ancient machine that it was supposed to kill him. Thin golden lines rested beneath the metal like sleeping veins. Around them, the ceremonial platform looked as though a small war had been fought over an expensive dinner. Shattered glass, smoking banners, overturned tables, and one ambassador still hiding beneath the banquet cloth despite the fact that his boots were clearly visible. The diagnostic drone hovered over the queen's wound. Bleeding reduced by 73%, it announced. Patient remains unstable. Medic remains inexplicably alive. Focus on the first part, Elias said. I find the second part more scientifically interesting. Royal physicians approached with cautious steps, stopping whenever the armor gave the slightest mechanical click. Elias removed the final fragments of black crystal from the queen's side and sealed the wound with a second layer of nanogel. Silver fibers knitted across torn tissue, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Seralyth watched his hands, her face composed despite the pain, but her long ears had lowered against her hair. Your Majesty, the chief physician said, kneeling beyond arm's reach, we must transfer you to the medical vessel. No transport beam, Elias said. The physician frowned. Human, I was not addressing you. The projectile destabilized her armor's quantum lattice. A transport beam might decide the queen and her breastplate are separate cargo. The physician stared at him. Elias tightened the bandage. I assume the Empire prefers its monarch assembled. Seralyth's lips moved in the faintest smile. Usually, the guards exchanged uncertain looks. None seemed prepared for their wounded ruler to make jokes with a human covered in ash. A medical cradle floated forward, projecting a low-gravity field. Elias guided it closer, but when he tried to withdraw his hand from the queen's shoulder, her fingers closed around his wrist. The movement was small. The reaction around them was not. Several guards raised weapons. The chief physician gasped. One advisor dropped a holographic tablet, which continued displaying emergency protocols across the floor. Elias looked down at the queen's hand. Her skin was cool, her grip steady. Did I miss another royal custom? He asked. Seralyth studied him for a long moment. Without the violent light of the armor around her, she looked less like the untouchable ruler whose image towered over every embassy, and more like a woman exhausted by pain and expectation. "You did not recoil," she said. "I was busy." When the field awakened, my guards stepped back. They enjoy having functioning nervous systems. My physicians would not come near me. They were calculating. "You touched me." Elias glanced at the burned fabric along his arms. The word touched makes it sound much gentler than it was. Her fingers loosened but did not release him. For 11 years, no one has approached this armor without fear. The platform seemed to grow quieter. Even the emergency drones reduced their alarms, as if the machinery itself understood that something private had entered the ruined hall. Seralyth looked toward the guards surrounding her. "My armor was created during the First Stellar War. It recognizes threats before thought becomes action. After it bonded with me, every person who came near wondered whether it would judge them." "And did it?" "Sometimes." Elias considered that. "That does make social gatherings difficult." A soft laugh escaped her. It was not the controlled sound of a monarch rewarding a courtier. It was brief, surprised, and almost youthful. The advisors looked more alarmed by it than by the assassination attempt. Seralyth lifted her hand from his wrist, then turned her palm upward between them. The gesture was deliberate. Elias hesitated now, not because of the armor but because everyone was watching. "Is this the part where I accidentally become governor of a moon?" "No." "Good. I have poor administrative instincts. You crossed a lethal field when every person sworn to protect me remained outside it." Her green eyes held his. "You are the only one who dared to touch me." There was no accusation in her voice, only a sadness too old to belong to the moment. Elias slowly placed his hand in hers. The armor stirred. Weapons rose around the platform, but the golden lines merely flowed from Seralyth's gauntlet toward his fingers. A warm pulse passed through his palm. His visor filled with symbols he could not read, followed by a single translated phrase. "Biological signature accepted." The chief physician went pale. "The armor has registered him." "As what?" the commander demanded. The drone scanned Elias and rotated thoughtfully. Possibilities include medical officer, bonded protector, trusted companion, or system error. Elias looked at the Queen. "I vote for system error." Seralyth's smile deepened. "For once, Medic Elias Venn, your opinion may not matter." Behind them, the recovered black crystal suddenly flickered inside its containment case. A red transmission symbol appeared above it. Someone was still connected to the weapon. Someone inside the palace network was watching. The containment case sealed itself the moment the red symbol appeared, but the crystal continued to pulse from within, sending narrow bands of crimson light across the ruined platform. Every guard turned toward the palace towers in the distance. Beyond the transparent walls, the capital of Valor glittered beneath the three moons, its floating districts linked by rivers of traffic and silver transit beams. Somewhere among those millions of lights, someone had watched the Queen bleed. Commander Thalen activated his wrist console. "Cut all palace communications." A nervous technician looked up from a damaged terminal. "That will disable transportation, security coordination, atmospheric regulation, and the royal kitchens." Thalen stared at him. "I mention the kitchens because the council becomes violent when hungry." "Cut everything except life support." The technician obeyed. Across the horizon, holographic bridges vanished and the palace towers dimmed one by one. The crystal's transmission symbol flickered, but did not disappear. Elias watched it carefully. "It is not using the palace network." The chief physician gave him an irritated look. "You are a medic." "Yes. We are occasionally trained to recognize when a glowing assassination device refuses to behave." Seralyth was transferred onto the floating medical cradle. The armor had opened around the wound, allowing silver surgical fields to seal the damaged tissue, yet her hand remained wrapped around Elias's. Whenever he moved more than a step away, the golden lines beneath the armor brightened in warning. This did not escape anyone's notice. "Your Majesty," Thalen said carefully, "the human should be scanned for influence." "I agree," Elias said, "preferably by something that does not explode." Seralyth's long ears tilted toward him. "You speak too much. It is a known side effect of surviving." The medical cradle carried her toward a secure shuttle while a sphere of guards surrounded them. Elias walked beside her, still unwillingly tethered by the armor's new trust protocol. The diagnostic drone followed overhead, projecting cheerful updates about his elevated heart rate. Inside the shuttle, the windows darkened and a forensic intelligence awakened in the central chamber. It called itself ORA-7 and appeared as a rotating mask made of white light. "Reconstruction initiated," it announced. The air filled with holograms. The attack replayed around them, diplomats arriving, guards changing position, the black sphere unfolding near the throne. Time slowed until each particle of debris hung motionless. ORA-7 traced the projectile's path backward. It had not come from outside the platform. The weapon had been assembled beneath the Queen's own throne. No one spoke for several seconds. Elias broke the silence. "That seems inconvenient." Thalen's jaw tightened. Only palace engineers, ceremonial staff, and members of the Royal Council had access. "And whoever arranged the flowers," Elias added. The commander glanced at him. "I am not accusing the flowers. They appeared loyal." ORA-7 expanded the throne's internal schematics. A hidden cavity appeared beneath the seat, shaped precisely to house the crystal launcher. Security records showed no entry, no repair order, no maintenance drone. Then the image distorted. Someone had erased 6 minutes from the palace archive. Seralyth's expression became still. "Restore it." "Impossible," ORA-7 replied. "The data was removed using sovereign authorization." The guards looked toward one another. Only 5 people in the Empire possessed sovereign access. One of them lay wounded before them. The shuttle entered the upper palace through an armored tunnel. As the doors opened, a line of advisors waited beyond the medical bay, all wearing expressions of practiced concern. Elias recognized several faces from diplomatic broadcasts: Lord Maravan, Master of State Intelligence, Lady Elira, Keeper of the Royal Archives, and Chancellor Vorin, whose robes contained enough gold to finance a small colony. Each bowed. None stepped near the Queen. Seralyth noticed. So did Elias. Chancellor Vorin spoke first. "Your Majesty, the Council is relieved beyond measure. We feared the armor would prevent rescue." "It nearly did," Seralyth replied. Vorin's gaze moved to Elias's hand inside hers. His surprise lasted only a fraction of a second, but it was enough. ORA-7 projected the attack reconstruction above the medical bay. The assassination device was installed using internal access. The advisors began speaking at once. Accusations collided with denials. Maravan blamed foreign infiltrators. Elira demanded a complete audit. Vorin insisted the Queen should be placed in isolation until the palace was secure. Elias listened for a while, then leaned toward Seralyth. "Is this normal?" "Unfortunately. On Earth, we usually wait until the patient is unconscious before arguing over her property." She almost smiled, but her attention remained on the Council. ORA-7 released a swarm of forensic motes. The tiny machines drifted through the room, scanning clothing, skin, implants, and genetic traces. One mote paused near Lord Maravan's sleeve. Then another stopped near Chancellor Vorin. A third moved toward Lady Elira. All 3 flashed red. The room froze. Thalen raised his weapon. "No one move." Vorin lifted both hands. "This is absurd." "Most arrests begin that way," Elias said. The forensic motes projected the same microscopic residue found on the black crystal. Yet ORA-7 hesitated. "Contamination pattern is artificial," it declared. Evidence was planted. "On all 3? Seralyth asked. "Yes." The conspirator had prepared suspects in advance. A sharp tone sounded from Elias's medical pack. He opened it and found the extracted crystal glowing through 3 layers of shielding. New symbols crawled across its surface. Not words. Coordinates. ORA-7 translated them instantly. The signal pointed to a chamber beneath the palace sealed for more than 2 centuries. Seralyth's fingers tightened around his hand. "The old armor vault," she whispered. The lights in the medical bay went out. In the darkness below them, something ancient awakened. Emergency lights awakened along the medical bay floor, painting every face in dim red. Beneath them, the palace trembled with a vibration too slow to be machinery and too deliberate to be an earthquake. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Somewhere far below, enormous locks disengaged one after another, each impact traveling upward through 2 centuries of sealed architecture. Commander Thalen ordered the Queen's cradle toward the secure chamber. Seralyth stopped it with a gesture. "The vault is responding to my armor." "Then your Majesty must remain here," Thalen said. "If I remain here, whatever is below will come to me." Elias closed his medical pack. "I dislike patients who insist on investigating ancient underground weapons immediately after surgery. I dislike physicians who give orders to queens. I am not giving orders. I am making complaints in an organized manner." The diagnostic drone floated between them. "Medical recommendation: both participants should become less stubborn." Neither acknowledged it. The crystal's coordinates shifted, drawing a path through the palace foundations. ORA-7 projected the route into the air. Service shafts, abandoned transit corridors, and a vertical tunnel descending beneath the oldest tower. Most of the passages had been removed from modern maps. Seralyth rose from the cradle. Pain crossed her face before discipline erased it. Her armor tightened around the bandaged wound, forming a supportive lattice of golden light. When Elias moved to help, the armor opened a narrow section along her forearm, allowing his hand through without resistance. The advisors noticed. By the time they reached the lower transit lift, the rumor had already outrun them. Palace attendants paused to stare. Guards whispered into private channels. 2 junior officers bowed to Elias, then appeared uncertain whether they had committed treason or merely embarrassment. "What was that?" he asked. Seralyth kept walking. "They believe the armor has chosen you." "For what?" "The details vary." The diagnostic drone accessed the palace gossip network. Current theories include royal physician, sacred protector, secret husband, biological key, and unusually durable servant. Elias looked offended. "Secret husband is above physician?" "By a significant margin." Even Thalen failed to hide a smile. The lift descended without sound. Transparent walls revealed layers of forgotten palace structure passing around them. Buried halls, inactive reactor rings, statues suspended in darkness. Valor's rulers had built upward for thousands of years, leaving their older secrets beneath each new foundation. At the final level, the doors opened onto a corridor coated in black metallic dust. The air smelled cold. No guards had patrolled there for generations, yet fresh footprints crossed the floor. Thalen knelt beside them. 3 individuals, heavy boots, less than an hour old. "So the ancient vault has visitors," Elias said. "Very welcoming." The tracks ended at a circular door engraved with thousands of names. Seralyth placed her palm against its center. Her armor sent a pulse through the metal, but the door remained closed. Then Elias stepped closer. The golden lines on her gauntlet reached toward his hand. The names on the door illuminated. A mechanical voice spoke from within. "Dual biological authority recognized." Thalen turned sharply. "Dual?" "I continue to vote for system error," Elias said. The door separated into rotating rings. Air rushed from the darkness beyond, carrying the scent of ozone and ancient oil. Inside, hundreds of armored figures stood in silent ranks. They were empty suits, taller than any living soldier, their faces smooth and featureless. Cables descended from the ceiling into their spines. At the center of the vault rested a throne-shaped machine, A man stood beside it. Chancellor Voren. His golden robes had been discarded. Beneath them he wore a fitted combat suit threaded with black crystal. Two armed technicians worked at the throne's controls while a third held a device connected to the palace power grid. Voren looked toward Seralyth without surprise. "You should have died on the platform." Thalen raised his weapon, but every empty suit in the vault turned its head at once. Hundreds of white eyes ignited. Voren smiled. The royal armor was never meant to protect one ruler. It was designed to command an army. Your bloodline forgot that. Seralyth stepped forward. "You corrupted my armor." "I freed it from sentiment." Elias glanced at the silent machines surrounding them. "He says while delivering a speech in a basement full of murder statues." Voren's expression tightened. "Who is this human?" "The person who ruined your assassination," Seralyth said. "A temporary inconvenience." The throne machine released a wave of dark energy. Seralyth staggered as her armor locked around her body. Golden lines turned crimson. Elias caught her before she fell, and the moment he touched her, the hostile pattern hesitated. The vault reacted. Some armored figures faced Voren. Others faced the Queen. The command network was splitting between them. ORA-7 appeared above Elias's wrist. "The human's registered signature is interfering with sovereign control." Voren stared at him. "Remove your hand." Elias tightened his grip around Seralyth's. "No." Every suit in the vault raised its weapon. The diagnostic drone hid behind his shoulder. "Probability of survival unavailable." "Why?" "There are too many ways to die." Seralyth lifted her head, pain burning behind her green eyes. "Elias, the armor is asking me to choose." "Between what?" "Obedience and trust." He looked at the ranks of awakened war machines, then at Voren standing beside the ancient command throne. "That seems unnecessarily dramatic. This palace was built by royalty." "Fair point." Seralyth turned her hand inside his and interlocked their fingers. The armor flashed gold. Half the army lowered its weapons. The other half opened fire. The first volley struck the armored ranks loyal to Seralyth, filling the vault with white fire and fragments of ancient metal. Elias pulled the Queen behind the circular door as beams carved glowing trenches through the floor. Commander Thalen returned fire, his weapon releasing compressed gravity pulses that folded two attacking suits inward with the sound of collapsing steel. The diagnostic drone remained hidden behind Elias's shoulder. "I have located an emergency exit," it announced. "Where?" "Behind the enemy army." "Excellent work. I am designed for accuracy, not optimism." Seralyth pressed one hand against the wall. Her armor flickered between gold and crimson, struggling against Voren's command signal. Each pulse made the wound beneath her ribs tighten. Elias could feel the tremor running through her fingers. "You are bleeding again," he said. "The palace is being attacked by its own dead army. Both problems can be inconvenient." Across the vault, Voren stood beside the throne machine while black crystal spread through its cables like frozen lightning. The technicians worked frantically at the controls. Behind them, ancient combat suits awakened row by row, drawing energy from reactors buried beneath the capital. ORA-7 projected itself above Thalen's wrist. "The command throne is linked to every defense system in the palace. If Chancellor Voren achieves full synchronization, he will control orbital weapons, city shields, and the royal fleet." "How long?" Thalen asked. 4 minutes. Elias looked toward the machines firing across the chamber. "That is longer than I expected." ORA-7's mask rotated toward him. "I can revise the estimate downward." "Please do not." Seralyth stepped from cover. The armor around her shoulders unfolded into luminous plates. She raised her free hand, and the suits loyal to her formed a moving barrier between the group and the incoming fire. Their shields locked together, creating a golden wall that advanced slowly through the vault. Voren's voice echoed from hidden speakers. "Your blood commands only half of them." Seralyth's green eyes narrowed. Half is sufficient. It was sufficient for your ancestors. That is why the Empire became weak. Elias followed beside her, keeping one hand around her wrist so the armor maintained his biological signature. Does every traitor practice speeches before committing treason? Thalen fired over the shield wall. Most of them. I suspected rehearsals. The opposing machines charged. Metal bodies collided with enough force to shake dust from the ceiling. Blades of condensed plasma ignited. Gravity hammers struck shields, bending light around each impact. Seralyth's suits fought with disciplined precision, but Voron's forces moved without caution, tearing through their own damaged units to reach her. One leaped over the shield wall. Elias raised his medical scanner instinctively. The device emitted a harmless diagnostic tone. The machine paused. A message appeared across its face. Unrecognized procedure. Elias stared at it. I am as surprised as you are. Thalen destroyed it with a gravity shot. They reached the base of the throne machine with less than 2 minutes remaining. Voron's technicians drew sidearms, but Seralyth's armor released a wave of energy that threw them across the platform. Voron did not move. Black crystal had already grown over his arms and neck, connecting his body directly to the throne. His eyes shone red. You cannot stop the synchronization, he said. The system requires sovereign authority, and I possess it. You stole fragments of my access, Seralyth replied. I improved them. ORA-7 scanned the throne. He has embedded a copy of the Queen's neural pattern into the control lattice. Elias looked at Seralyth. Can we remove it? Only by replacing it. With yours? If I connect completely, the throne will recognize me. It may also absorb my mind. Voron smiled. She understands. Elias examined the living cables, the black crystal and the golden lines moving through Seralyth's armor toward his hand. The system had already accepted 2 signatures. Aura, he said. What happens if the throne receives conflicting sovereign patterns? Unpredictable failure. Good. That was not a recommendation. He stepped onto the throne platform. Seralyth caught his arm. Elias. The armor accepted me because you chose trust. Perhaps the throne will make the same mistake. You could die. He glanced at the army tearing itself apart behind them. I am beginning to feel repetitive. Before she could stop him, Elias pressed his palm against the throne. The machine seized his arm. Cold light shot beneath his skin. His thoughts scattered across the vault. Memories of field hospitals, distant planets, bad coffee, and patients who always lied about how they were injured. The throne searched him for royal blood and found none. Then Seralyth placed her hand over his. Their neural patterns entered together. Voron screamed. The black crystal network fractured into competing commands. Palace schematics erupted around them in enormous holographic layers. Orbital cannons rotated toward the capital, then away. City shields activated, collapsed, and rose again. Every machine in the vault froze between 2 orders. Elias heard Seralyth's voice inside his mind. Do not let go. I was hoping you would say something medically useful. Even there, he felt her laughter. Together, they pushed a single command into the throne. Protect life. The order spread through the army. Weapons lowered. Voron tore himself from the cables, ripping black crystal from his flesh. No, the system was built to obey power. Seralyth opened her eyes. They burned gold. Then it has learned something new. The throne released a final pulse. Every hostile suit turned toward Voron. For a long moment, the ancient soldiers stood in perfect silence around Chancellor Voron. Their weapons remained lowered, but every featureless face had turned toward him. The red light faded from their eyes and returned as a calm gold, the same color now flowing through Queen Seralyth's armor. Voron backed away from the throne. You cannot command them, he said. You are weakening the Empire. Seralyth released Elias's hand and stepped forward alone. Her wound still pained her, but she no longer moved like someone enduring the weight of her crown. She moved as if she had finally decided what the crown was meant to carry. "I am not commanding them," she said. "I am ending their command." She raised her palm. The order passed through the vault without sound. One by one, the ancient suits lowered themselves to their knees. Their plasma blades vanished. Their shoulder cannons folded into sealed compartments. Then the white lights behind their faces went dark. The army that had waited 2 centuries for another war became nothing more than empty armor. Commander Thalen crossed the platform and placed Vorin under arrest. The Chancellor tried to protest, quoting laws, bloodlines, and emergency powers, until Thalen fitted a suppression band around his wrists. Elias watched the band activate. "Does that also stop speeches?" "No," Thalen said. "Poor design." Vorin was taken away with the surviving technicians. ORA-7 recovered the deleted palace records from the throne's memory lattice, exposing every payment, forged authorization, and secret transmission behind the assassination. Lord Maravan and Lady Elira were cleared of suspicion, though both appeared deeply offended that someone had planted evidence on clothing they considered priceless. The palace spent the following days repairing itself. Autonomous construction swarms sealed the damaged towers. Orbital engineers disconnected the ancient command network from the royal fleet. The Black Crystal was divided among laboratories under independent supervision, while the throne machine was dismantled and placed in a museum where, according to Elias, it would be far less dangerous and probably receive more visitors. He spent most of those days in the Royal Medical Wing. Seralyth's wounds healed quickly under nanofiber treatment, though she complained that Elias checked the bandages too often. "You were stabbed with a device designed to overthrow an empire," he reminded her. "And yet you behave as if I injured myself opening a door." "I have treated door injuries. They are surprisingly humiliating." Rumors continued spreading through the capital. Holographic news channels called him the Hand of the Queen, the Human Shield, and for 3 unfortunate hours, the Royal Toucher. Elias demanded that the last title be removed from public networks. The Palace AI informed him it had already become the most popular phrase in 12 star systems. Seralyth laughed so hard her medical monitors issued a warning. A week after the attack, representatives from across the empire gathered inside the restored throne hall. The transparent floor had been replaced, the shattered pillars rebuilt, and above the chamber floated a holographic sky filled with the worlds under Seralyth's rule. Elias stood among the military officers in a formal uniform he found unreasonably tight. "You look uncomfortable," Thalen whispered. "I have worn armor with more breathing room." Trumpets made of resonant light filled the hall with music. Seralyth entered without the ceremonial cloak and without the sealed gauntlets that had kept the world at a distance. Her armor had been altered. The lethal field remained, but its control no longer depended on inherited authority alone. It responded to conscious choice. She stopped before Elias. "Medic Elias Venn," she said, her voice carrying through the hall. "You crossed a field that every trained protector feared. You treated a stranger while others saw only a throne. You reminded an ancient machine that its purpose was not obedience but protection." Elias looked at the hundreds of watching nobles. "This would be a poor time to mention I was mostly improvising." A wave of restrained laughter moved through the chamber. Seralyth removed her right glove. Silence followed. For generations, no ruler of Valor had touched another person in public. Advisors leaned forward. Guards forgot to breathe. Even ORA-7 paused its recording calculations. The Queen extended her bare hand. "When I reached for you after the attack, I believed I was thanking the only man who dared to touch me," she said. "I understand now that courage was not the absence of fear. You were afraid, and you came anyway." Elias looked at her hand, remembering the deadly field, the hidden vault, and the cold intelligence of the throne searching his mind for blood he did not possess. Before Valor, he had believed his duty ended when the bleeding stopped. Now he understood that healing sometimes meant standing beside someone after the wound had closed. He placed his hand in hers. The armor remained silent. No alarm sounded. No energy surged. There was only the warmth of her fingers and the quiet astonishment of an empire witnessing something once considered impossible. Seralyth smiled. "You are still the only person who argues with me during medical treatment. I am hoping that privilege is not hereditary. It is permanent." The hall erupted in applause. Months later, the old armor vault became the first interstellar academy dedicated to defensive technology and medical rescue. Thalen commanded its security division. ORA-7 served as chief instructor and frequently described Elias as an educational example of what not to do. Elias remained on Valor as royal physician and humanitarian envoy, though he refused every ceremonial title containing the words chosen, sacred, or husband. On quiet evenings, he and Seralyth walked through the palace gardens beneath the three moons. No guards kept their distance. No lethal field separated her from the world. One night, she reached for his hand without ceremony. "You no longer hesitate," she observed. Elias intertwined his fingers with hers. "I have learned something." "What?" "Queens are easier to treat when they stop trying to die." Her long ears lifted with amusement. "And humans," she replied, "are easier to tolerate when they stop pretending they are not afraid." He considered denying it, then smiled. Together they continued beneath the silver trees, leaving the palace lights behind them, while high above Valor, ships from two civilizations crossed the same peaceful sky.